Hello, everyone. This is Devin Thorpe for the Crowdfund Beat, and I'm excited today. We have a very special, very fun conversation today. We have Lisa Ketsalas, who's here. She's producing a film called Somewhat Dead, a horror film, and she's crowdfunding the money for this. And she's doing it in an interesting way. She's bypassed Kickstarter, and she's using iBankers Direct to do a Reg D 506C offering under Title II of the Jobs Act. This is really an interesting approach. So, Lisa, thank you very much for being here with us today.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Well, first off, tell us how it is that you came to be making a horror film.
Well, that's a good question. It's an interesting question because I would say that the horror genre is not something that I had thought about, developing early on in my career, and it's something that I sort of came to. And I was drawn to the fact that horror movies have succeeded at the box office. Over the last 40 years, if you look at the various genres of film, there's only two that consistently have, a good, risk-reward ratio, and that's action-adventure films and horror films. So I found that very intriguing. I also then looked at the types of horror films that have been out there over the years. There's been horror comedy, horror supernatural, and certain ones do better than others. And I felt that, there was a large amount of horror films that weren't particularly well told, kind of mixed in with the ones that are well told. Some of the things based on Stephen King stories, and even going way back to Rosemary's Baby, or coming forward to some of the, more recent films, particularly in the last year. Some of them are well told, but there's a number that aren't. And I thought it would be interesting to develop something with really wonderful characters that the audience would really care about, make it extremely scary. And I came across a young director at the Cannes Film Festival a number of years ago, and we met purely by accident. And he had made a short film and had created a very interesting world with interesting bad guys and an interesting protagonist. And I thought he was immensely talented. So we started to talk. And he and I together decided to develop Somewhat Dead. And it's taken quite a bit of time to get it right. I mean, I think people don't understand how long development can sometimes take. It can take a very long time. So this script has really been crafted in a particular way, and I'm very proud of this script. I think it's a very commercial script, and I think it's something that really good actors are going to want to play. I mean, that's another thing, that with horror films, you don't have to have an A-list cast. In fact, some of the best-known horror films, and particularly this year, the film Mama, The Purge, The Conjuring, all these films that have made a lot of money, they don't have, Angelina Jolie is not in these films. There are not, A-list actors in this film. You don't need to have those sorts of names. But I thought, why not have a horror film with really tremendously good actors in it who are drawn to it because of how well the parts are written, that has great dialogue. I also thought it would be interesting to have a film that would have you, screaming in fear one minute and then laughing the next. So the film sort of, developed into a horror comedy supernatural film, and it's really its own specific thing. And I'm really excited about it, and I think we're going to be able to get a tremendous cast attached to it.
That's great. So a lot of people are crowdfunding for money for films. It's become almost standard now, but people are typically doing that on Kickstarter, where they're raising money that works out essentially as a donation or a prepaid purchase of the DVD.
Right.
So tell me, how did you come to decide to use an investment and equity approach through iBankers Direct? How did you come to that conclusion or decision?
Right. Well, the reason I chose not to use Kickstarter and Indiegogo is that the amount of money that an independent producer like myself needs to be able to make a film is generally more than the amounts that people raise on Kickstarter and Indiegogo. Now, if you're a famous actor or a famous director, I know Spike Lee went on Kickstarter, Indiegogo, Zach Braff, the actor, went on. If you're a known entity like that and you have fans out there and you can say, hey, give me your $10, your $15, your $25 so that I can go make the movie of my dreams that I can't, currently make under the studio system, they then can raise potentially millions of dollars. But if you're an independent producer like me, people aren't going to be saying, hey, Lisa Ketsalas, I'm dying to give you my $10. They don't necessarily know who I am or know how great my script is, so they're not going to be inclined to do that. Now, I might be able to raise some money, but I'm not going to be able to raise the kind of money I want to raise. But that's only one reason. The other reason is, just as you said, these websites are donations, and I think it's very unfair that people are going to put their hard-earned money into a movie, and then if the movie makes millions of dollars, they don't get a return on their money. They don't get anything. It's just the DVD or the poster or whatever it is that they got. So I wanted to create a situation where an investor, whether they're sitting in Kansas or Maine or Massachusetts or Ohio or Arkansas, that they could invest in a Hollywood movie.
I'm sorry, you don't want investors from Utah. That's
sorry. Any of the 50 states, please, or anywhere in the world for that matter, so that they would actually really be in the film business. They would have an investment. They would have a net profit participation for the life of the film. And they would also share in all the ancillary rights. If there's masks or a video game or anything that comes off of the movie, that they would share in that revenue as well. So that's why I found the ibankersdirect.com the place to go, because people would have a chance to hear correctly about the film. I've made a video that I put up on the site that explains all about the film. My directors made a director's vision video, which is up on the site, so they can look at that. And then we've done a whole film plan. And it shows, how the investors, will get their money back, what their returns are likely to look like, what the film will do if it turns out just to be okay and not, fantastic. And obviously, if the film's a hit, people will be receiving, net profit on the film for a very, very, very long time. So a modest investment could, in fact, turn out to be something extremely lucrative. So
tell us. Explain a little bit more about the structure of the investment. This is the golden age of investing, where you and I can talk about this now. 90 days ago or 60 days ago, you and I couldn't have had this conversation, but now we can. Tell us a little bit about how this works, because I think what you've described sounds like equity, but I don't think that's what you're offering. Tell us a little bit more about how it works.
It is, in essence, putting equity into a film. But traditionally, film investment for equity investors has not put them in the best position in the past. It's allowed mezzanine financing and all sorts of other monies to always sit ahead of them, and the equity investor is always at the end of the line, so to speak. So what I'm trying to do is to allow the equity investor to have a much better position, and what I'm hoping is if I can raise a certain, my minimum raise is $3 million, my maximum raise is $6 million, and the budget of the film is going to be between $5 million and $8 million, depending on how much I raise. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shoot the movie somewhere where I will get a very lucrative, tax credit rebate. I know everybody sort of has become familiar with those terms. The tax credits and rebate situation in the UK, for instance, is much better than it is here in a lot of respects. But there are certain places here you can go and get lucrative rebates. So that I'm going to be accessing at least a minimum of 20 to 25 and potentially 30% of my budget from that type of scenario, from where I'm shooting the film. There are also government entities that will put in equity and sit side by side with other equity investors within certain places. For instance, I'm looking in Northern Ireland at the moment. I may end up going to shoot there because I might be able to access more money there. So I'm hoping by combining the investor's money with a rebate or tax credit situation that's going to get me nearly the budget that I need. The other thing is that once have raised this equity, and the film is, a go, so to speak, I'm going to be able to act like a studio. Studios have the money, then they say, okay, now I'm going to make the movie, and they can go out and make actors offers. Independent producers don't have the ability to do that because we can only go to those actors that we know, that we have a relationship with before we've raised the money and say, hey, will you read my script? Because agents don't want you coming to them with a movie that's not financed because they don't know whether you're going to get it financed. And they only want their actors attached to things that are ready to go, because if their actors attached to something, they know that you're using their actor to raise the money off of. Hey, I've got Steve Buscemi in my film. Hey, I've got whoever. So, and what if you don't raise the money? Then it's reflects badly on their client that you weren't able to raise the $3 million, $5 million, $6 million on the basis of their client. So they're very resistant to that happening. So the only actors you often can get attached to projects ahead of time are things where you have a real relationship with the actor. Somehow you can get around the agent and get to them. Now, obviously, if it's a very high-profile director, very high-profile producer, they can get actors attached to things because they know they have a great likelihood of getting them made. But in the independent world, you really have to, be out there fighting to get the money. So I'm not making any offers to any actors before I have the money. I'm going to do what a studio does. So I want to be able then to, go to whoever I want, who I think is right for the part, and make them a real bona fide offer. It's a film that's happening. It's not a film that might happen someday in the future.
Yeah.
So that will allow me to get a much better cast than the average independent producer, who's out there with no money, just saying, please read my script and be in my film.
Yeah. Well, that's really an exciting prospect, and really suggests a whole new strategy for filmmakers. It'll be interesting to see if your experiment works, which then begs my next question. How is it going? Are you seeing some success? How can you measure it yet on your crowdfunding efforts?
Yeah, we can't sort of measure it. Can I just say one other thing before we move on to talk about that? The other thing I've done to ensure that I'm going to have a great cast is I've brought a casting director on board, who's one of the biggest casting directors in the movie business. Her name is Lisa Beach. You can go and check her out on IMDb. She's cast everything from Wolverine. Out this year were the Millers. She cast Scream 1, 2, and 3. She cast Girl Interrupted. Angelina Jolie won her first Oscar for that. About Schmidt with Jack Nicholson. She cast Horrible Bosses, Wedding Crashers. I mean, she's one of the most well-known, successful casting directors in the business, and she read the script. She says this is fantastic, so she's going to be doing it for less money than she normally gets paid, and I'm going to give her profit participation on the film. That's the other thing I wanted to say is everybody who's involved in this film, this is a group effort, and I'm going to let everybody share in the net profits on the film who makes a real contribution. So having Lisa Beach on board is a really big deal. And she can I can get the script into anybody's hands that I need to through her.
That's great.
So
now let's talk about how it's going.
Yeah, so we've only been up on the site live about a week, and I think we've raised $120,000 or somewhere around there.
Wow.
As pledges are made, the people need to be vetted and things. So I think it's still very early days. But the fact that people were willing to jump right in, during the first week and a half, I think shows that the thing's, going to have legs. And I'm very hopeful that over the next, few months that, people will really start to take notice. We're starting to do a bit of press now, and to get the word out to not the usual suspects, and we're trying to reach those people who don't have the opportunity to invest in a film.
Well, Lisa, I really appreciate you making time for us. I congratulate you on your progress so far. I wish you all the best in completing a successful raise and making a great film.
Okay, thank you very much. And if anybody wants to find out more about the film, you go to ibankersdirect.com, and it's very easy to sign up. to have a look at the offering documents and the videos and to learn more about the film. Okay.
Fantastic.
Thanks for having me.
All righty. Let's do some good.
Okay. Bye bye.